Hey y'all, it's your girl Byrd here. It's been a while. I've been away working on getting all of my life together. But I am so happy to be in the space with you today. If you have a friend that is looking to dive a little bit deeper into their creativity, go ahead, feel free and tag them in this post. Share this with them. I'm excited to share this space with you all. Um, if this is your first time, I would love to welcome you to Byrd Talk, where we align with our creativity here in this space. This is really where we find a place to create, connect, and build. For those of you all who don't know me, my name is Heather Byrd Roberts, and I will be your host today. And I am the creator and founder of Byrd's World, which really exists to inspire and empower lives through creativity, right? And so I believe in the power of creative joy, and this is why we are here today. I am beyond excited because we have a guest with us that's helping us revitalize this Byrd Talk that we have here in June. And I am excited to bring them up on stage. So I would love it if you all in the chat feel free to say welcome to the nest. I like to bring to you all Aris, who is the creator of Entrepreneurs. And y'all, that name just in itself right there needs to be highlighted. So let's find out a little bit more about Aris. Aris, welcome to the stage.
Hey, thanks. I'm so excited.
I'm so
Um,
excited to have you here. Like, you have been working your tail off.
oh
But
yeah.
before we dive into what that even looks like, tell the hummingbirds, that's my community, right? Tell our hummingbirds a little bit about yourself and the organization that you are the creator of.
Okay, I'll try to give the short version of this. So I'm a multi-passionate creative. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a creative and I wanted to do it for a living. I wanted to make money doing it. And then
Mm,
I started to realize as I looked at my career path and options, it was like, wait, where's all the choice? Where's all the options? And it turns out it wasn't really a popular thing a while ago to take that path. You had to kind of go to art school. Maybe you'd be lucky if you got a job, and it depends, on where you went. And
mm,
then there was like the whole fine arts world, and everything was pretty standardized. And there was an in crowd and an out crowd. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I fit right there. I'm
that's
kind of a weirdly independent person. I like to do things my way. So I had a lot of different creative interests. And as I was able to make money doing the things that I did creatively, I found that I was able to explore these things without so much trouble and worry that, like if I didn't want to do something, I could like kind of move on to something else and still have an income. And the way I did that was
mm,
to understand like that I was hustling my own way through life, right? And then I started to realize that was the hard way to go about it. I got lucky enough to be introduced to the startup community, the tech world, all that stuff that was really getting hot. Entrepreneurship became like an actual in vogue thing. And it was all of a sudden being an entrepreneur was cool and not like disgusting. And then I was like, okay, so this can be done. But guys, where's all the artists? In the tech world, there were a ton of people building these amazing startups, always with the intention of doing something like a piece of software that they would then sell out for like $1 billion. It was like the big dream, right? And here's the thing, artists, we're probably worth more than any of that stuff when it comes to culture and,
let's go. Yes.
right? And I've always believed like we really need to be valued differently,
Mhm,
more and differently. The problem is I think most artists are never taught how to value themselves. So um, I felt like there was a gap in the market. Artpreneurs
mhm.
was born out of the idea that like I was learning all this stuff and I realized someone needed to represent, someone needed to represent the artists and the creatives in the world in the business space. Why wasn't this happening? Why were people not able to make that connection? I don't know. But then we saw a shift, right? And people started to understand it totally works. So no more just like little tiny people doing their little thing, in a hidden space. It's like
Yeah.
some artists are starting to rule the world. Have you seen what's going on recently?
Wait,
Girl,
have
and
I?
have
I
you?
mean,
I don't know.
I'm like in
Have
it.
you
So
heard of
tell me.
like NFTs, for example? overnight millionaires, you know, multi-millionaire artists. I know that's
Mm,
like a really out there kind of like, oh yeah, but that person. But it's not so one in a million anymore, you know? It's like one in a thousand. And it depends on the steps you take to make sure that you do it right and get there. So I'm like, I'm full on, I believe in like controlling your creative destiny. At
yeah.
least educate yourself to the rights you have, to the power, to the value that you have, so that
Mm,
you can go out in the world and make something change and impact it the way you want it, you know? And so
yeah.
you can't do that if you just stay ignorant and pretend like nobody, you know, everybody should just give you a handout. You should just be able to create art and then someone should just like it and all of a sudden open their wallets and boom. And I think that's the problem with the mindset with a lot of creatives, you know? And
Mm,
it's perpetuating the starving artist idea that we
yeah.
should all sit around and wait for a handout or be like hope to be discovered, you know?
Yeah. Yo, I love that idea of like being able to I think you said control your destiny, control your like
Creative destiny.
your
Yep.
creative destiny.
Control your
That in
creative
itself
destiny.
could be like, I don't know if you that tagline, but like
I'm putting
that
on a t-shirt. I'm putting on a
you need
t-shirt.
to.
I got my
Seriously.
whole merch line. Yep.
I'm telling you, because that just in itself, taking control of your destiny and not allowing somebody else to dictate whether your worth, right? Because there's this stigma that's attached to being an artist that even though, like you said, we make the entire world run. Like just think about all of the things that we could not do this past year and a half, and how that affected our psyche, how we were trying to figure out how to move through this world even though we couldn't have sports, right? We couldn't go to the theater, we couldn't do all the things that we were used to doing, and what that did to us. So that in itself hopefully woke some people up and allowed folks to see the value in being creative, being an artist, and how always doing stuff for free is not what's up. Like it's not like how do we
Oh
make
yeah.
that we're valuing ourselves in the way that everyone else values their skill. It's the same thing. It's so important.
I think it's beyond the same thing, right? So like the thing about artists is we bring a certain set of values that it's hard to define. And because it's
Mhm.
so ethereal or esoteric, it's kind of like this, well, who's going to teach you what you're worth? Well, the market might teach you what you're worth, but sometimes you're worth different than what the market dictates too, right?
Very
So
true.
it's a complicated matter that I think people they got to wrap their heads around the idea of like what's the value we bring that's beyond like the piece of canvas or the book we sold or the performance ticket one time, you know. I think there's so many ways that we add value and there's many ways to package it. We need
Mhm.
to learn those ways. I mean, if we don't
Yeah.
learn those ways, then we're always debilitated by someone else making those choices for us, or worse, never seeing the light of day with our creativity. Like it'll all
Mhm.
be sitting in a closet or something and we'll be wondering where did life go, you know?
Just hearing that makes my entire body like shrink up because, like I mentioned earlier, like I am
No.
so dedicated to creative joy, and I feel like we are just better people when we are diving into that. And a lot of what I am um, working towards is making sure in our adult life we're making a conscious effort to be creative because the older that we get, the more that it's stripped away. Like we're told we're supposed to fit into this box, we're supposed to dress in these suits, we're supposed to move more in this like logical pathway, versus what's actually needed in spaces. Like the more creative that we are, the better and happier people are in spaces. And so why aren't we actually building that up? As soon as budgets are cut, you know, art's the first thing to go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the education space and sometimes in the public space, they definitely are. And I'm one of those people who definitely fights against the idea that budgets should, you know, be cut for that. But I also realize that, you know, the bureaucratic side of the arts is part of the problem, right? The fact that we even have to wait for a budget. But you know, that's why I say like, why not look at it differently? Why don't we start looking at ourselves as a profit bearing, you know, industry? Creative industries get it, you know, anybody who's in the like the technical digital world, anybody who's making like 3D models or video games, they totally get it. There's no question that they're a creative that's worth money because
Yes.
literally like make the game and then someone buys it. There's probably like very little chance that you won't make money doing that. But when it comes to other stuff that's a little bit more soft, right? The things
Yeah.
that are a little more culturally attractive, if you will. Maybe
Mm,
that's the good word for it. Like the performing arts, the fine arts, the things that make us really think twice about our human experience. It's really hard to say like, oh, that's what that's worth, like a monetary value, like make it and they will come is not really the truth. So I think that's where there's a bit of a disconnect. And I think both of these things can live together. You know,
yeah.
what's wrong with the fine arts and the commercial arts kind of playing together? I think there's a lot to learn from each side, right? The commercial arts need more heart and they need
Hmm.
more passion, but the fine arts also need to understand that structure and, you know, some sort of financial gain is worth it because the artists behind creating those fine arts deserve to have a living just like anyone else. You know,
Exactly.
but you tap a group of people and you say, who wants to pay for the artist? They're like, yeah, no. Infrastructure,
A
sure.
living
Like
wage? What? You
roads, yeah,
living wage?
roads,
What you do? What?
yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's why I think we have to take control, right? We have to say like to people, this is what I'm worth. You don't get to tell me that I'm not worth anything. We
Mm,
may we may differ on what level we might settle at, right? Depending on the type of person, like depending on if they're a fan, a collector, someone who enjoys, you know, the finer things, someone who enjoys more of the commercial side of things. Everyone consumes art. I mean, you were just talking about how like what happened with this whole last year.
yeah.
um I think it was really early on. Remember that talk people were starting to be like passing around the internet? They're like, "Oh, what would you do without artists right now? You're watching your movies and playing your games and, you know,
Right.
watching your live performances from afar and all that, but that wouldn't be here. And it, you know, it wouldn't be here without artists."
Hmm.
And it's true. It's true, but it's so funny how like most people didn't think about what art really defined itself as until the question was, would it stick? Would it stay? What's going to happen if I don't get my Netflix? Oh,
Yeah.
wait, like artists made that, writers made that,
Yeah.
filmmakers made that, and people like acted and oh, that's the art. Oh, I forgot about them. Like I forgot
Yeah.
about the arts. Oh
And
yeah, I remember
and
that.
I feel like the model that you are presenting to folks has people thinking outside of the box. So I'm thinking about again, we're all like uh, coming out of this year and a half, and I'm like a part theater kid, and so thinking about the theater just over the past, like I was like I'm on the fringe, like I'm not.
I was like, which part of you is the theater kid? Like which
I'm
part?
on the fringe of it, right? So like a lot of people are like, are
One
you an
jazz
actor?
hand. You got
You
like
know,
one jazz hand,
one some fingers.
one
Uh,
jazz finger.
I don't want to call myself an actor by any means because I did not go to school for that fully. And so I don't want to diminish the amount of work that actors actually put into it. And so I call myself more of a performer. I do
Hmm.
shows with my poetry and stuff like that. But when it comes to like embodying a character and having to do method acting, I'm like, that's that. I'm gonna leave that to the professionals. So that's why I'm like, I'm on the fringe of the theater community, and those are definitely my people. But thinking about how the world shut down and that we didn't have live theater, people were rethinking of their livelihood. They had to think about how they were going to survive because that wasn't here. And I feel like what you're presenting with entrepreneurs, it's like thinking about how can you think outside of the box and turn your expertise into a business, turn your expertise into something where you can get paid that's maybe not necessarily the mainstream way of getting paid, but like how are you creating a business model for yourself? How are you like,
Yeah.
like that's what I'm thinking about when I'm hearing what you're talking about.
You got
Um,
it. You hit the nail on the head right there. Like a lot of what I teach is really about the shifting and understanding the pieces and parts that go into a business, right? And
mhm,
your craft is basically your product, your service, your experience, the thing
yes,
you deliver. That is
yes,
what you've been working on your whole life while
yes,
you work on drawing, painting, writing, performing, whatever. That's your craft. There is so much to the commerce side of it, which
yes,
I think it scares people. And okay, let's be real, it scares people. But
mm-hmm,
why? Why does it scare people? Because they don't have the guidelines, they don't have the mentorship. There's no platform serving artists for this reason. You
yes,
know, there's a few people out there, like ever since I started doing this really heavily and putting my time into it, I had to obviously do my own market research and find out who are my competition, what are they doing? And I
mm-hmm,
realized that there's a lot of like singular artists saying, okay, well, like I made it on Etsy, I did like six-figure business. Now let me go and teach people what I learned. But the truth is, it's like not really a very wide and broad sense of what would happen if you couldn't do Etsy? What would happen if you couldn't do this? Like everyone's
Yes.
using tactics, and they will sell the crap out of one tactic to you. Like
Mhm.
musicians, how to get your music played on Spotify or something. It's like, oh, $500 for the course on how to do that. What happens when Spotify fails? What happens when you don't know the principle behind all
What's
that?
the foundation of all of
Yeah,
it?
so,
Yes.
it's not really sexy, but I'm trying to make it sexy, but, like, it's not really sexy, but it
It's
is, like,
necessary.
it's the foundational reasoning or the foundational education under entrepreneurial behavior. It's the kind of stuff you'd get in a university if they cared to give it to you, and I've
Yes.
heard okay, I got friends in schools who are like, "Yeah, I just came out of school." They said they gave us, like, an entrepreneur course, and I was like, "What was that like?" And they're like, "I
Right.
have no idea. I have no idea
But
what I'm doing." Nope.
how did you so I absolutely love that your brain came to this conclusion because while I was going through school, people were like, "Well, what you gonna do with that?" So, like, I have my undergrad in performance art and my master's in organizational leadership. And the whole time I was doing this, people were like, "Well, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to make a living? What are you?" And I was just like, "Watch me." Just like, like how do
You
I
had a plan.
right, I have a plan. It's back here. I'm trying to formulate it, but I know this is possible. Um, well, do you remember the moment where you were like, "This needs to happen"? And when was that? And how did you shift? Like,
Oh man, it must have been early on in my life because I was just thinking like I was not the typical kind of artist. I was just so bold and brash about what I was going to do. I was going to go out there and take the world by storm, and I was
do
like,
it. I love
"Oh,
it.
girl, yeah." But the world kind of has a few other things to say, right? Um, didn't
But you're
really
not
take the
stopping
world by storm. Well, I started to realize it's not just one big moment where you realize, oh, like this has to happen. But there's a couple steps in my journey that I would probably highlight. One, I realized like my path was not going to be go to art school. I didn't have
Mm,
the means. It just wasn't happening. And then if I did go to art school, I feel like I dodged a bullet in a way. Because I mean, do I want $100,000 of debt and waiting to get a job somewhere at Disney or something like that, right? Because I mean, I was eyeballing. I was someone who drew a lot, and I was eyeballing like, what if I was going to be maybe an animator or something?
yeah.
Um, it didn't happen, and then the money was the big deal. So thank God I didn't end up in that huge amount of debt with no real prospects. I mean, the competition is high for those kind of jobs.
Yeah.
So instead, I ended up in a university that really didn't have exactly what I wanted for a career path. And I didn't know what my career path was going to be, but I knew it wasn't going to be like the starving artist. I knew what it was not going to be.
Mhm.
I did start in fine arts. I started in a program of fine arts and realized I did not fit. I just didn't. There's a certain, I don't know, personality type that might be drawn to that. And because of my, bold, brash, like idealism, I didn't fit in. I
Mm.
actually, I have a story about like dropping out of art school because of my grad student teacher. If you want me to tell that, I
Yeah,
don't tell it too
like,
often. It's kind of
boom.
hilarious. Like I was in one of the remedial 2D drawing classes. Remedial, okay? I mean, like think
I've
about
had
this.
some stick figures, no judgment here. Like, I can't, not my
Well, it wasn't remedial because I couldn't draw. Here's the problem. It was
girl.
remedial because universities require the basics, whether you have a portfolio or can do something, fantastic or not. It doesn't matter. They want your money. So,
Hmm.
requisite. So I found myself in a 2D art class. Boy, was I bored of drawing circles and squares and like triangles all day long. I'm not kidding. This is the kind of exercise. I think I it was part of my rebellious side, and I don't consider myself too rebellious, but apparently rebellious enough not to do that homework.
Mm.
Um, got into it with my grad student teacher. Now he was just a few years older than me. He was just a few years older than me. He was working on his thesis. What is a fine artist's thesis? Well, I can tell you what his was. His was a series of pieces of him sitting in his underwear on a photocopier, plastered across some canvas, and making a statement about his ass. I could not swallow this. I really just could not take that level of what I consider to be like I don't even know. Like, it was so offensive, the attitude around, like, just accept it because it's making a statement. And you don't get it. But
Hmm.
smart, fantastic
So the
people will get it. It's
elitist
worth it. Like,
type
yep,
approach
that's
to it.
kind of that elitist crap that I kind of like go away from all the time or push against because I do think that I've adopted this mindset that I think we're all kind of worthy. We're all valuable. We just have different ways of expressing it.
Yes.
And that was my first major like moment where I was like, holy crap, I'm never gonna fit in here. And I can't do this. Why am I paying hundreds of dollars for this one course to
Mm.
learn something I learned when I was 5? So that was one thing. And then the other thing was like just realizing that if I didn't want to go that path, if I wasn't going to be the career artist looking for a job and begging and hoping, I needed to figure out what was the alternative. So I turned towards the graphic arts and the commercial side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able, luckily enough, because I was looking for opportunity, I found one. I found an on the job training experience in a media relations department. And I got my training to be a graphic designer there. And, that was pretty fantastic because I ended up with a mentor who was also a freelancer on the side.
That makes the
Oh
difference.
my goodness, it totally did. And I mean, it wasn't just because I wasn't like just learning the skills. Learning the skills was awesome
Yeah.
because just a few years later, I was interviewing people who'd gone to school for it and realizing how much of a gap their experience and knowledge had while I
Mhm.
was the employed person making money in a media and publishing company. Um, but yeah, like that whole mentorship, he was a freelancer on the side, and I was like, "What's this? How do you do that?" And he's like, "Well, you find clients on the side, and you do projects for them, and oh, let me show you. I'll teach you how to do how to buy your own computer and what to buy, and like how to do your contracts and all that stuff." And I was just like,
The
okay, I'm
things that
on.
they
This is
don't
on.
teach you, they're like, "Hey, let me show
Oh,
you
I
how
know.
to create it," but then they don't actually teach you how to benefit from it at
Yeah.
the end of it.
Schools don't. But I mean, we have YouTube now. We have
Very
YouTube now, so like everything's on YouTube. Use it, people. Use it.
it's so
Whatever it takes, educate yourself. Whether it's like someone like me or someone else, just find the pieces that are missing for your work. But that was like the second big one was like, hey, I can actually do this, and I could do it on my own, but I just need to have the resources. And this is when I hit a wall because I didn't realize that I was going to have it out with my mother. She did not believe in this idea of like taking this risk and putting money into
mm,
a very expensive new computer and like just I don't know what she didn't get, but then it started to become so clear that for many years, even though she was encouraging me to be an artist and to do creative work, she was never going to support if I was going to go and like chase the dream. And
ooh,
the how was really hard, right? I didn't have the
yeah,
how. I
yeah,
had to figure out the how. I knew the what. I mean, I knew what I wanted. I knew
yeah,
what it looked like. I was
yeah.
getting there. But when I needed to handle the how, I needed mentorship, and it did not come from the support I thought I was going to have.
Yes, that's something that I actually took a couple of years to struggle with. Honestly, I knew what I wanted, and because I didn't have the how, I wasn't acting because I was like, I wanted to be I wanted to be perfect. No one is perfect. I don't. It's just who I am, and if it wasn't the way I thought it was supposed to be, if I didn't have that roadmap, or if I didn't create that roadmap for me, there wasn't going to be any movement. And that how piece really blocked me at one point. And so I remember specifically one of my bosses was like, as long as you know the what, just do it. You'll figure out the how. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, as a what? Type A, what you want me to do? So I like just hearing that really, really sticks out to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little marketing secret. Most of the marketing world is about giving you a taste of the what, getting
Yes,
you excited over it, and then selling you the how,
but
so
while learning, like doing market research as the taste is happening, like they're doing market research, they can figure out how to move it forward. I was like, oh, I see what
mhm,
you're doing there. I am learning, taking note, right?
smarty pants. Good for
Yes,
you.
and I love. I was like, I feel like you were reading my mind because I love asking people the question of like, were you supported as a child as an artist? Because some folks are like, nope, this isn't going to pay the bills. You got to figure it out on your own. And some folks were like genuinely supported. So like, what was that like for you growing up?
I want to reiterate just how confusing it was for me growing up as a creative person. My mom's creative. She was a musician. She liked to draw and paint, and she had a career doing some of that.
Yeah.
And she got into the culinary arts for a while, and hairdressing and things. She did a lot of things. And so it's like every time I did something creative, it was like she encouraged the creativity. She saw the talent, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Unfortunately, later she admitted that largely she was jealous of the fact that I'd had all that talent. And maybe it's because I wanted to do something with it. So I think that's where it got confusing though, because there I'm getting all of this feedback, this positive feedback saying, oh, you should do something. You should go get a job. You should go work for this company. It'd be so amazing, don't you think? I won awards, all kinds of stuff. And then when it came to actually making it happen, no way. In fact, negative no way. Like, oh
Hmm.
no. Oh no, you're not doing that. No, I won't support that anyway. I will squash everything that you try to do. There's no way that that's going to happen under my watch.
Huh.
And so that was a shocker, right? Because you think like all these years, someone's telling you something in one ear, like, oh, you're so creative, you should do this thing. And then, okay, I want to do that thing. And then, like, oh, hell no, that's not
Right.
what I meant by it. And I don't even know what she meant by it. So, not to open up a bunch of baggage tonight,
No, but I
but
think,
that's like, it's so crazy. It's like a mind-blowing experience to feel like you think you got it going on, and then you realize when the shit hits the fan,
yeah,
really when you really need that, when you really
yeah,
need someone to step up and they're not there for you. And it made it so much harder, right?
yeah.
I still did it. I still did it. I went against her wishes. I did my thing. I found clients. I started hustling. I started learning the business. I started realizing I was way over my head because competition was high. And like, I had to learn every little thing about everything. I had to learn
Mhm.
about, how to write my own contracts when the contract wasn't fitting what the job was, how to set my own prices, how to find out what the competition looked like so I could stand apart. All of these things, girl, all of
Y'all
these things.
hearing this? I'm dropping nuggets for what we're gonna tell you about a little bit later because I'm sure you're gonna have pieces of that in your
Well,
summit. But like that's
the
so important.
Yeah, the good news is, it turns out that while I was doing graphic design and illustration, like I was learning those hard lessons, but I realized that those lessons applied later when I
Yes.
started doing performance on stage, when I started doing craft work, when I started doing things like filmmaking. All of those lessons can be carried over. It's called transferable skills, right?
No,
So you,
yes, yes,
yes, yes, you're geeking out with me.
yes, I
So
am. Because I
yes,
talk about this often, and people kind of look at me like I'm not. So I really align with what you're saying in terms of not fitting into specific places. That's why I was very specific about being on the fringe, right, for the theater community, because I'm not a full theater kid, but I'm like, I vibe with them, right? I'm also a poet. Don't really vibe completely with the poets. And so finding my own lane and being okay with that. But I talk a lot about taking what you learned in different spaces and they're transferable in others. It's just about how do you make them fit into this new reality that you're building for yourself and then moving forward with those skills. And people are like, what are you talking about? I have to do this certain track. And I'm like, no, you have certain skills. How do we
yeah.
apply them?
You're considered, in my world, in my definition, you're considered more powerful. To me, Byrd, you've got a power stance right there. Like the fact that you don't fit in means you
Yeah.
can innovate in new areas that other people would not see. They don't even see it
Yes.
coming. You're going to take
Exactly.
it and you're going to ride that. And
Mm-hmm.
that could be something that is, it's so new and fresh. People are like, "Well, oh, that's awesome. I didn't like you're blowing my mind because you do something so different than everybody else." That's
Mm-hmm.
worth something. That's the kind of value I'm talking about, how, you can show your value, you can also up your value by
Yes.
doing something that's innovative, by being more exclusive or different, or we should embrace our differences, we should embrace our weirdness, because it is some of the biggest selling points we've got.
What's your weird? What is your quirky? Like what are all those things that make you stand out? I'm
You
like
want
I
to know
said,
for real? it's
what's
all it's
up?
all behind closed doors. So I ended up having a pretty solid career in voice work. So one of my weirds is like I walk around the house saying things in cartoon voices and meowing all day long because I
Yes.
can't stop.
Okay, so now I have to think about because I know I did something weird today. Mine is like only partly weird that I can think of right now. So I will randomly stop what I'm doing and have random dance parties like in my house or
By
like
yourself
break out
too.
break out in song. Like yesterday, I was with one of my friends. It was his birthday. Well, his birthday was today, but we had a gathering yesterday. Just like 3 people, and like throughout the entire night, we broke out in song. And when I tell you, we just like one person started singing, and then the other person started going, and then the third person was in, and we were switching parts, and then there were dance moves. Like I think that's one of my favorite things to do.
So
Or
when you say that's weird, I'm like, wait, that's not normal.
I don't know, because that's normal to me. I'm okay, so that means I have to find something even more weird. I know I'm like looking around my place right now. I probably somebody else could probably tell you my quirks a little bit better than I do because they're
Yeah,
normal for me. I'm just like
right.
that's
'Cause
just
I mean,
what I
it's an
do.
everyday thing. We don't know what's
I
odd.
don't. Mm-mm.
Take it. We got to take a poll from the audience. What's
Yeah,
weird?
what? Yeah,
What's
folks.
out of the
What?
ordinary?
What are some of the things that I do that's like really weird? You look at me like, why does she do that? I don't know.
Do
I
you
talk
do these things publicly? Because I mean, that's another thing is like a lot of creatives are always concerned about like what persona do I bring to this
um,
business or whatever. Oh,
no.
but it's for real. Like it's a real thing. Like
I
people
know
really
I
just,
know it's
oh,
very
how do
real,
I need
but
to
I'm
look
also
like it's like we talked about before. Is like I need to look like this on Instagram. I can't look any different. I need to have the filter exactly. And then like my whole thing needs to match this way. I've
so
noticed
I
this.
love that you said that because one of the things that I do when I do performances or do workshops, I'll literally like get up in front of people and be like, "Shake it out," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Everybody stand up and shake out whatever you got going on." And they were like, "What? What is happening?" I was like, "Look here, don't act like you're not nervous about being in the space with people that you don't know. Let's just own it. Let's shake it out." And then after that, 5 seconds later, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then like you can tell they're
Right.
relaxed. Like,
Yeah, and they feel better because they got up and moved and their bodies did something different, you know what I mean?
great,
Like, so you did something like a favor for them because that's
right,
a really good thing. I recommend that for anybody who's like, dealing with an audience that might be a couple hours into a long talk or some day or
yes,
whatever. It's like, get up and shake and move. Our
yes,
bodies need it, our brains need it, all that stuff.
for sure.
But I mean, so once again, not really weird, but I think a question on a lot of creatives' minds would be like, yeah, how do I show up? And in the summit, we're going to talk about that. There's a couple of really awesome social media specialists who are talking about like, how do you be authentic you? Because
Mhm.
the biggest question on people's mind is like, yeah, but don't I have to have a profile for this? Because like my family's going to complain when they start seeing my work, and they're not going to like it and whatever. But there's a great speaker who's going to talk about that. She had
Mhm.
to overcome that. She had to overcome
Yeah.
her fear, and also actual like people from her family saying, oh no, you can't do that online, and her saying, sorry, but I'm going to show up, and she's going to tell
Yeah.
you how you can do it too.
Yeah.
um, and there's a lot of other branding going on in the summit. We also have some amazing artists from very specific pockets of interest, like filmmakers,
Mm.
writers, musicians, and um, basically we cover the gamut, right? So we got
You
comic book
still have
artists,
that balloon
animators.
right
Well, she didn't make it. Sorry, the balloon maker didn't make
there?
it.
I was
But
excited
that
about
would have been fun. And I had a guy who's like, I've been doing entertainment. What did he do? He does very similar thing, like where he kind of does parties and entertainment stuff.
that.
Um,
Mhm.
so, there's always a chance though that some of these people who didn't make it to the summit will be on next year or a podcast that I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
So, but this year we still have an amazing like 35 speakers, okay? And we got some of the last year's speakers coming back to support, right?
Yeah.
That's always awesome. We got some people who are doing YouTube specialists, like they're making their whole thing, has been like really honing in on YouTube, and it's working really well for them.
I
Um,
love them. So
there's a
yeah.
guy who just decided to drop an album, right? He left his band and label, and now what? So he's like, drop an album, you know? Um, the stories are amazing. I think the best part of this is like that I get to meet these people, talk about their stories and highlight them and share the knowledge, right? Like 35 minds across all the arts is going to be way more powerful than one. And
Mm.
even though I think I have really great insights into what we should be doing and how it should work and all that, I think there's so much value in those separate stories and the intertwining of, oh, look, more than 5 people said the same thing about how they felt or what struggle they went through. Oh,
Yeah.
that is such gold right there, just to know you're not alone.
To know you're not alone. That I was like, that's everything. That is absolutely everything. So
It
yeah,
can
we're
be so
diving
empowering.
into this summit right now. I'm sure you have a lot of things going on for your 2021, but this is coming up. Can you tell folks about, if you could put it in one sentence? That's what I want. If you could put it in one sentence, what this summit is.
Whew, you're trying to tap my creative juices right now. Try to put it in
I
one
know it's
sentence.
8 o'clock. It's
This summit is a meeting of the minds across all arts disciplines, levels of experience, and from a global standpoint.
hey,
Speakers all over. Diversity is a big one. Side
yeah.
note, it's parentheses. That's going to teach artists from all over how they can deal with the next normal that we're facing.
There we go. And this is happening.
Oh, it's happening next week. Are you kidding me? It's next week.
I
Ah,
mean, I
ah.
know, I know
Okay.
that there's a lot that goes into the summit, but I am excited for the spaces that you are creating for folks to come together and have this conversation. It is international, right? Like,
It is,
you
yeah.
have so many people coming together, so many different disciplines, like you mentioned, and to talk about what is next and to add this layer of the business to being an artist is super, super important. So folks out there, if you are an artist and you're trying to figure out ways in which you can turn this into a business, the ways in which you can truly, truly, truly monetize on your gifts, your talents, like this is honestly the place to be. I've had a couple conversations with the lovely creator here, and like, when I tell you, working hard, working super hard to make sure that this is something that you enjoy. The amount of guidance that's been provided, the flyers are awesome. I'm going to post the flyer in the chat when you're ready, and also I will be one of the presenters that will be there with everyone else. I'm
Hi.
excited about this. Like, and I remember as I was putting my presentation together, I was like, "Oh, people aren't going to want to hear about this. This is the business mixed with the art," and I had to like pull myself out of this. Like, no, this is what is needed. This is the conversation that needs to happen. And so I'm super excited to be able to present about like creative project management, like soaring past your execution block so that you can actually move ideas to building to that execution phase. Because without execution, everything is just going to live up in your head and the world's not going to see how brilliant you are. So how are you able to move through that space? And so I am going to post a link. The value of this conference is $300. Is that correct?
Yeah, a regular pass would cost $300 if you don't have a
Regular
special link.
will cost $300. And so for folks who are tuning in today, I am posting a link right now for you to be able to click on, for you to get your free pass to this summit. I am going to leave this up. Today is Tuesday. I am going to leave this up until noon on Friday. You want to make sure that you are taking advantage of this summit and finding ways to move yourself from the blocks that you have, and being a creative and the stigmas that are associated with that, and really moving that to a space where you can just thrive and build. And Entrepreneur Summit is the place where you're going to be able to do that.
For sure. Yeah. So make
Yeah.
sure that you block off that weekend, come live, because we're going to have some interactive networking. We're going to have some really cool, kickoff party and wrap party, some panels that you won't want to miss. Some of the speakers will be talking about specific things that really face, your art business right now, your career that you're facing, like
Mm,
specific to money or mindset or technology or whatever. So that
yes.
is part of the value of that $300 ticket, is showing up and being there. And of course, there's other options if you want a little more of a VIP experience. We have those too.
Yeah, yeah. So join us next weekend. It's going to be a blast. And I think the key phrase that I got from us talking was, being at a place like this, being at a summit like this, you know that you're not alone. Because sometimes we put ourselves in boxes and we hide away in the corner, and we think that we can get out of whatever it is that we're going through by ourselves because we think no one else is going to understand. And this is going to be the place where you're surrounded by people who have not only gone through similar challenges that you might be currently going through now, but will also be able to help you get out of whatever rut you're in faster. So, I mean, that alone is just worth it, knowing that you are not alone and then having that pathway to move forward. So,
Ooh, I didn't even mention it because it's not a big deal. Nobody comes for the prizes, but there's prizes.
I
Okay.
mean, I'm easily pleased. So, I mean, the prizes.
There's prizes. Oh my
There's
gosh, there's
prizes.
prizes. There's some really great perks that our speakers are going to give away. Like if you show up to their talks, make sure you're showing up to their talks because they'll get a little email saying, hey, why don't you
Yeah,
go get this cool freebie thing? And so, yeah, that's just a little side note. It's just another like reason why not? Why not?
yeah,
Go, go,
yeah.
go, go.
And then there's networking.
Networking was great last year. People loved it. We got to sit down and like really meet people from all over the world. I mean, it was cool to sit down and be like, okay, I'm talking to a person in Arizona and a person over there in Australia at the same time
Mhm.
about their art world and their business and their career and everything that they're shooting for, striving for, and the
Yeah,
struggles they're facing. And just like having that time to really connect with people across the world in a live setting was really cool. And relationships are built that way.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Collaboration opportunities, like all sorts of things. You never know. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for being here. I am so glad we got a chance to talk. Thank you so much for also opening up and being vulnerable. I think it's really important as we are going down this path of realizing that we are not alone. Being able to really identify what um, I don't want to say that, but that's what's on my mind right now. Like identifying what our wounds are. Like when I asked the question about your childhood and like whether or not you were supported, I think we get stuck in, oh, this isn't happening, but not being able to identify why it's not happening or what was the root cause of things. And so I really appreciate you diving deep into that. Before we close all the way out for tonight, I have some rapid flight questions that I would love to throw at
Oh
you.
no.
Um, and so there's 7 questions. Feel free to just let us know what is on your head at the top. Like when I ask you the question, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Don't think too hard about it. They're not scary, I promise, but it's something that I just ask all of my guests that come and join us and just share their wisdom with us. So, are you ready?
Okay, I'll make myself ready. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
here we go.
Yeah, you got it. Okay. So for the first question, creativity is. Finish the sentence.
Bringing different ideas together from different parts of your experience in life.
Okay, see, not that bad, not that bad. Okay, question number 2. What piece of advice has stuck with you over the years?
Don't say can't. Do not use the word can't.
Hmm. My grandmother used to say that all the time. There's no such word as can't. What's a lesson that you've learned and had to relearn over and over and over again?
That I'm worthy, that like I can do it, right? Because don't we all have imposter syndrome and this idea that even though we've accomplished a certain level of something, we have to like go again, even if it's next level, right? You're still
Mhm.
relearning the same lesson, which is you can do this and you're worthy of it.
Hmm. Whew. Finish the sentence. I am building.
Next, I am building my first album written and produced by me, maybe. If I
Uh,
ever find some creative time to myself after this summit.
ooh, that's a session in itself, right? Making time for your own
Oh yeah.
endeavors. Ooh, okay, hit a spot there. What's one thing that you're really excited about right now?
The summit and getting all these people together and having this experience and then being able to breathe for a second. I'm
Yes.
so excited to kind of like see how it goes and see what kind of impact we can make.
Hmm. It's gonna be amazing. I'm excited for you. What are you deeply grateful for right now?
All the things, my health, the
Mm,
fact that I am able to go and do this, my skill set that enables me to make this happen, and the connections I'm making, all of it.
mm. Okay. Last question. What are 5 books you could not live without?
Oh, I saw that question on your list and I was like, I cannot name 5. I read all the time. I devour them like candy and then I forgot that I ate them. So,
Hold
you
on.
know what I mean?
What?
I read books all the time, and then I'm like, oh, I read that book, right? Like, so here's a few like recent, perhaps I won't be able to name them, but like there's been a few recent ones, like The Creative Habit by Twyla
Mm,
Tharp was awesome. There is Real Artists Don't Starve. Good one, right? That's in the artist space. I read a ton of other stuff too. I read business books, nonfiction. I read fictional junk I won't tell you about. Although yeah, I got like a little soft spot for like the weird romantic, you know, 20
you gotta give your
something.
brain a break from all of the
I
things
do.
that you
That's exactly why I read them, because I'm just like, well, they
Mhm.
make me feel good. They take my, they give me a little fantasy world to like jump off into, because I work pretty hard.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't say like 5 books, but the E Myth is pretty damn fantastic.
What is
If
that?
you've never heard of it, it's called the E Myth. E Myth, it's a book. E
Oh,
stands for the
yeah.
entrepreneur, right? So it stands for entrepreneur myth, and the book is all about how to build a business the right way,
Mm,
and I think it totally applies to the arts,
yes.
because well, all this stuff applies to the arts. It's just who's thinking it, who's going to be able to shift and make that connection, right? So
Yeah.
there's a few. I can't say I would name 5 I can't do
That's,
without, but
I
like
mean, those are
there
three good ones.
there are books that changed my life at the time I read them. Like, if
Hmm.
it had been any other time, maybe it wouldn't have worked out the same way.
Yeah.
But there were moments in my life where I'm like, that was epic.
Mm.
And I'm embarrassed to say which books these days, but like back when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it changed my thinking. Not that I wasn't already chasing the dream and doing the hustle,
Yeah.
but it kind of like was like, oh, you can codify behaviors even within your, if you have a job and if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be an investor. Like, that's what that book taught me. I didn't have to be stuck in one thing, and I didn't have to just be a business owner. I could also like
Mm.
work my way into passive
Hmm.
income. And that's probably where I got this crazy idea that I should be making passive income off my art, which I do. Yay, because I built that. It took me a long time, but I built that. I make royalties every month from some of the stuff I've
That's
done, and it's
bragging rights that you should open every conversation with or every podcast you ever do. Like, that's, I'm just saying, just that alone would have people's like, well, excuse me, you did what? You did how?
Yeah, well, I just thought everybody's doing it these days, so whatever. Um, but yeah, that's kind of a big part of my life, is like the comfort of knowing that I got checks rolling in, at
Hmm.
least, to a
Yeah.
certain extent. You can't always control that situation, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a big
For
deal.
sure.
Anyway, that's 4 books. I probably can't come up with the fifth one tonight, but like
That's
there are
okay.
so many good books, guys. So many.
These are
Read all the
really,
time.
really, really good books. I'm down for every single one of these. So if any of these books piqued your interest, I will make sure to include a link to the books so that you all can pick these up and read them, and maybe, contact folks after us and let us know how that worked for you. Aris, thank you so much for being here,
Thanks,
and
Byrd.
for laying so much wisdom down, and also just debunking the myth of how artists can't make money. Artists can't build a business around who they are as individuals and being able to um, really package who they are. I can't wait for next weekend. I'm super excited for it. I am sending you all the positive energy to make it through this week and next week, because I know you are working so hard, like so hard. Um, for everyone else, thank you all so much for being here with us. I truly appreciate it. If you all have any comments, if you're watching the replay, make sure that you you type in hashtag replay so that we know that you were here, and we can be in conversation with you all. Join us for the summit next weekend. Make sure you click on that link. It'll be available until noon on Friday so that you can get your free pass for a $300 value summit. So you want to make sure you hop on that. I'm super excited to be back into this space and reinvigorating Byrd Talk. And so I will be sure to see you all next week at 7:30. And until then, I want to let you all know that I see you, and keep flying. Bye.